Okay, so I went and I saw the new Halloween film. And I have to say, it's kind of a good reboot, a reimagining of the franchise 40 years later, kind of like minusing out the second film. But I would have to say, I'm going to give this movie 2 out of 5 stars. Okay, it's rated R for horror violence, bloody images and language, brief drug use, and brief nudity. Now, the brief nudity in the film is actually just a flashback sequence to the original 1978 film where they used the footage from that movie where the Michael Myers hand, as the little boy comes down, starts stabbing his sister who was in the mirror putting on makeup or doing her hair, and she was topless, and you get to see her boobs and all that kind of stuff. So that was the only nudity that was in the film. The budget was around $10 million. I think it finally landed somewhere between 10 and 16 million after the reshoots that they did. So it just needs $32 million to break even with marketing and all that good stuff. And it's on pace to have an $80 million weekend. I think when the final numbers come in, it'll be more like 75 million or something on Monday. But hey, look, it's a good movie. It's about Laurie Strode. She comes to her final confrontation with Michael Myers after he's been locked up for 40 years. And once again, he escapes, or maybe not once again, because this is a continuation from the first film. So unlike the other movies, he doesn't escape from an asylum and all that other good stuff. So there's some really good standout things that are in this film. I will say that they did a really awesome Steadicam shot where Michael Myers comes up onto the scene and he walks into a house, kills somebody, walks out of a house, goes down the street, goes into another house, kills another person. Now listen, these one shots are awesome. They've been doing them lately in a lot of films. Creed was another one where an entire boxing match was done with one continuous shot. So this is another one of those Spielberg oneers, where you go from one frame to another frame to another frame and transition until you... Look, it was really good. It was well executed, and it had to have been rehearsed and lit perfectly with lights down alleyways and all sorts of stuff. So my hat's off to that sequence because it was one of the better parts of the film. The shot of the little boy with the rifle who is crossing in front of, it looked like a Bronco or something, a beat up truck. This is when they were on the scene of where the bus that was transporting prisons from the insane asylum to another insane asylum crashes onto the road, and all these people in gowns are walking, or their white outfits walking all along the highway, and some of them are all mentally deranged, and a little boy and the father pull up. And the father says, "Stay here. I'm going to see if anyone's hurt," because all they see is this bus in the ditch. And the son is there, and he gets a gun when his father doesn't return, and these crazy people are banging on his windows, and he gets out and he crosses in front of the truck, and it's damn near beautiful, like perfectly shot, crossing the light. The light is beaming through under the arms and through the gun, and it was just a really standout. My hat's off to the people who lit this film and shot this film, because those kind of shots really, really made the movie for me. Okay, so I felt like a lot of the performances were dialed in. I mean, I think that there was some really good acting in certain parts, but most of it just felt dialed in. I will say Will Patton played Will Patton. They tried to make you care about his character a little bit. He played Officer Hawkins, and they said, he was the first deputy on the scene in the 1978 murders. And, it's 40 years later and he's still just Officer Hawkins. So for me, that pulled me out of it a little bit because from a writing standpoint, because, if you're a deputy in 1978, you're not going to be just an officer, 40 years later. Most police officers retire after 25 years and take a pension. So for this guy to be 40 years later, still just like a deputy and not even a sheriff, or not even like someone high up in the ranks like a detective, it just kind of it just felt weird. And Will Patton just kind of, like I said, he just played Will Patton. So it just, it just felt like he just showed up and kind of walked around a little bit and did his thing. And that's fine, because when you put Will Patton in a movie or a TV show, he's Will Patton. And that's kind of what you're getting when you get him. There was kind of this big twist where there was this doctor at the psych ward who was on the transported bus trying to take all the crazy people to the other crazy location, and Michael Myers was in them with them. And then all of a sudden, the bus crashes and all this other kind of stuff. And one of the big twists was his character, Halleck, was played by Halleck Billinger. He played Dr. Sartain or Sartan. I don't know if that's how you say it. So basically you were on this guy's side, and then all of a sudden, the twist is he caused the bus crash to happen. And earlier on the film, two podcast journalists show up, and they just happen to have, they made some phone calls and happened to get Michael Myers' original mask from 1978. And it just kind of felt weird. And why would this doctor let these people come antagonize Michael Myers when he hasn't said a word in 40 years? He won't speak to anyone, and they just have him in chains. And so you're going to taunt this guy with the mask and get a rise out of him to try to get him to speak about the murders for your podcast. The writing was okay, but I mean, look, it's a Halloween film. It's Michael Myers. It just, for me, I needed a little bit more than that. And so then you find out that it was the doctor, Sartan, or whatever his name is. He's the one. You think he's going to be like a Loomis character, but that's the twist. He winds up being a guy that idolizes Michael Myers from a medical perspective, and wants to break him out to see him kill again for himself. Which just kind of is weird. That this doctor who is in charge of all these people for so long in the psych ward, and he's obviously like a decorated doctor. This guy just, doesn't want to do anything but let Michael Myers out to watch him kill, to study him. It just doesn't make any sense to me, and it just felt really weird and something put in there to kind of force it. The best part about that character was Michael Myers stomping on his head like a pumpkin and just shattering his head on the ground, and all this stuff spewed out. I have to say the killings in this movie were really good. The special effects were on point. The practical effects were great. Top notch, probably the best in the entire franchise. Because you got to remember, this is like the 11th movie in this franchise that's been around, and some of them have been hit and miss. I mean, the two with Rob Zombie directed, nobody really liked those. They really bombed at the box office, and so this is a reinvention of it. There was one line that stood out in the movie that just made me cringe. Laurie Strode is introduced on the crime scene with Dr. Sartan and Will Patton, and they introduce Dr. Sartan to Laurie Strode, and she literally says, "So you must be the new Loomis." And I was like, ooh, it just felt like it was very forced, and you're like spoon feeding information to the audience that really they didn't really need to have that spoon fed to them. If you're going to see a Halloween movie, you're probably a fan of all the others in some capacity. And if you are not a fan, you kind of got the backstory and the recordings and stuff that, there was a doctor that studied Michael in the first place. Now there's another doctor that's studying Michael, and you really didn't need to know that, oh, you're the new Loomis character. It just felt like, it was just like really weird. It just didn't feel right. You didn't feel sorry for any of the sub characters that were killed. Because they didn't invest enough time to develop them as characters for you to care about them. So they just become people that get killed. And so there's you don't feel for any of them, but it's a Halloween movie. You're not really supposed to feel for these characters. You're supposed to go there and just watch them get chopped up. So you don't need to invest in any of these characters. They're very one-dimensional. But there was one person that was my favorite out of the entire movie. It was a young boy named Jay. His real name is Jabrail Nantanabu, I think is how you say his last name. It's really difficult to say. He played a character named Julian, and he was like kind of comic relief, and was a kid that was being babysat by the babysitter who you don't remember her name. She's just somebody that gets killed. And his character's name was Julian, and he was like really funny and really gave a great performance. And then he just kind of like ran off and disappeared, and you never found out, well, did he make it to his parents? Did he make it to a neighbor's house? Was he safe? He just runs out the door and leaves these people to be killed and murdered. And but all his lead up was really good. They were developing this little kid, and then all of a sudden he's gone. And I just was like, what? Look, the movie was a nice paying homage to the franchise of Halloween in the first film, and then, you know, bringing the things back like the iconic mask and then the music that John Carpenter wrote, because the last two Halloween films that had Rob Zombie, I don't think they used the Halloween music in the first film. Dun, 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 dun. You really need that music to sell that he's there. And you know, now there's two more generations in the film, Laurie Strode's daughter and granddaughter, who are in the final battle with Michael Myers at the end, and they all survive. So it looks like, you know, they've set it up to where Jamie Lee Curtis can kind of bow out, and then you've got the daughter and the granddaughter who could kind of be the ones that carry the torch to keep fighting Michael Myers if he survived how he was supposedly killed in the ending of the film. Look, it is what it is. It's Halloween. I hope that people go see the film and enjoy it. I give it 2 stars out of 5. Hey, it's Halloween, so just go, show up, enjoy it. And if you like this video, you can comment down below, give me a like, give me a share, and spread this on social media, and we'll see you on the next one.